So our two panels for the front and the back of our bag are now done, and they've been fused with the medium loft facing. So we're going to just pop those to one side, and we'll now focus on the lining. So you've got your two lining pieces here, and then you've got your fabric for the pocket. The first thing to do is to decide, I'm going to have this as the top of my pocket. You could have it that way round. I'm just going to choose that way as the top. So choose which way you want to have as the top. Place your lining fabric right sides together. We'll clip together along that top edge and then sew with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So just sew down here. So I'll match the raw edge up with the 1 centimetre line. A couple of back stitches and then sew those together. They're now sewn together. Trim off any of those threads as I go. Next thing we'll do is open that up and press it so all of the seam allowances are pressed onto the lining side, and then we'll just do an understitch on that lining side to keep the lining inside. So I've now pressed this all facing the lining side. I'm just going to pop that under there now and do a little understitch just on this lining side, just like we did with the pocket before. Understitch done, so I can now give that a press and fold it back to give us our pocket. So I'll give that a press, and then what I want to do is I want to turn it round to this side, so I'm looking at the spotty lining side, and I just want to press in each edge by about 1 centimetre. And then I'm going to press in the bottom by 1 centimetre as well. So I'm pressing in all of the edges. So press the top first where you've just understitched, and then press in all the edges, lining and outer fabric, by 1 centimetre. So there's my pocket. Top edge has been understitched and the side and the bottom edges have been pressed in. We're now going to place this and stitch it onto one of our lining panels. So the first thing to do is just to finger press that panel in half to get the halfway line of the lining panel. We want our pocket to be central. So you can see you've got a nice crease there. And this pocket wants to sit 10 centimetres down from the top edge. I'm just going to use my quilting ruler to help me. So I've got 10 there, but you could use a regular ruler or a tape measure. I'll fold my pocket in half as well to get that halfway point. Line that up with that crease, open it back up again. And I've now got a pocket which is central and 10 centimetres down from the top. I can now take my pins and I will just pin the pocket in place, laying it on top of the spotty lining fabric. There, so that's now pinned in all the way around. We're going to leave it open at the top, and then what we'll do is we'll start at the edge here, we'll stitch down, pivot there, stitch across, pivot, come back up, and then we want to do a couple of stitches along, and then we'll come down, along, back up again and meet up with our original stitch. So we'll have this sort of twin needle effect going around the outside of our pocket. So I'll just start there in the top corner, a couple of millimetres in from the edge, and I've got my stitch length as 3, which is a nice top stitching length, a couple of back stitches. If you get wrinkles, just lift the foot, brush everything down and put it back down again. Sometimes fabrics can walk about a bit, so take your time. And my eye is just looking at this window here, just to check that I'm keeping the same distance in from the edge. Tuck that fold in. Keep going to the corner there. Actually, I might go one more stitch. Just hand wind one more. Turn it round, and then I should just come along the bottom there. I'm coming back up to the top now. When I get to that top edge, I'll just swivel this round, and then I will hand stitch one, hand stitch, hand wind, 3 stitches along, and then I'll just come back round and retrace my stitches. This time the initial line of stitching is sort of lining up with the corner there on my presser foot. So by doing this twin row of stitches, it just makes the pocket a little bit stronger. Gives it a nice look. I need to come one more. And also that raw edge that you've got inside will get trapped in between the 2 rows of stitching, so you won't have a raw edge inside your pocket. Let's see. That's about right. Back up to the top again and hand wind to meet my very first stitch that I did at the top there, and then I'll just go a couple back and forward to lock those stitches in place. Trim off that those threads. There you go. So hopefully you can see that you've got that twin needle effect going around the outside edge of your pocket, and it just means that you've got a nice interior finish on your pocket as well. Now if you want, at this stage, you can leave your pocket like that, or if you want, you can split it in half, or you can really do what you like with it, but I like to split this pocket in half, so I just start at the bottom there and sew up to the top. Go away, fly. So start at the bottom here and go up to the top with a stitch just to divide the pocket into 2. If you're going to do that, always start at the bottom and come to the top. If you start at the top and go to the bottom, you might end up with a little wrinkle at the bottom. If you start at the bottom and you come to the top, the wrinkle just gets dispersed at the top edge there. Oops, pop that in there. So if you want to, you can do a little line, draw a chalk line, or with a heat friction pen you can draw a line to follow. A couple of top stitches there to lock that in place, and that's my pocket now stitched in half. I can you can see the line that I drew there, that's with a heat erasable pen, so when I iron that line will disappear. So I'll go and pop that under the iron now. So the pocket's now stitched on and split into two parts. You can set that to one side because we're now going to tackle the zip. The first thing that we need to do is to thread our zip pull onto our zip. So look at the zip with the right side facing you, and the right side is the side where the zip is protruding. So on the back it's a lot flatter, on the front you've got the raised zip area. And just split open the tape into two sections. And then what we do is we cut into the zip tape and through those chunky plastic teeth to create this sort of shape here. Like so. And this just gives you something to hold on to when you're pulling the tape through. So you want to thread your zip pull onto your tape. So you're looking at the right side, you've got the zip facing you, and you're going to thread your zip teeth onto there. The first side is easier to do than the second always. It's a bit fiddly. You can hold on, having these bits here, having cut it, gives you something to fold it onto it. Bring that all the way down, open that up at the end there. Don't pull it all the way off. Don't worry if at the end they're not exactly the same length, because that's all gonna be resolved. So there we go. So if I open that up there and close that there, that's now my zip puller is now threaded onto my zip. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the small piece of sparkly fabric to create a nice end for our zip. So let's just cut straight across there. We've got a nice blunt end to work with. So if you're looking at your zip, there's your puller. We're going to put the end on this side. Yep, so as it's open, it's going to go there. This end of your zip will end up being encased into your bag. So it's just this one we're going to put an end onto. So take your piece of sparkly fabric, fold it in half, and you're going to press it, and then you want to fold it back by 1 centimetre on both sides and press that, so you'll end up with it looking like that. So I'm going to go and pop that under the iron now. So I've pressed that now, so I've folded it in, folded those ends over. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to stitch along here, trim it down, turn it through, and then that will pop onto the end of our zip. So we'll use a centimetre seam allowance either side. I'll start at the folded end. Do a few back stitches. Back stitch at the end. Exactly the same on the other side. So it looks like that. There you go, so you've got a little bag there. So what you can do now is just trim down this seam allowance a little to about 1/2 cm and trim the corner a bit. And then you can turn that through to the other side. .10 will just help to get nice corners there. So there's our zip, and that just to fold it in a little, and then that just tucks into the end there. And what we'll do is we'll just do a stitch along the end there just to hold that in place, and that's your nice kind of end of your zip done, and that's the bit that you can hold on to when you do your bag zip up, and it just looks really nice. So I just pop the end of my zip with that fabric there under my machine. And you have got a bit of a zip to go over there. There you go. So that's now sewn in place. So you've prepared your zip, and the next stage is to attach your zip to your bag. So take your front bag panel, one with the pocket on it, move your strap just out of the way, and then you want to place your zip face down like so, and you will have this zip on this end extending beyond the end of your bag. So you want to match up the raw edges so that the top edge of your zip tape and the top edge of your bag are together. And obviously you're placing that right sides together, the zip facing down on the right side of the bag, so you're looking at the wrong side of the zip there. Now you need to measure in 4 centimetres from this outside edge here, and that's, you're going to actually stop sewing the zip at that point there. So you're going to leave this little bit loose, and that's so that you can have the zip tail sort of poking out onto the right side of the bag once you're finished. So you've laid your zip onto your bag. You now need to get your lining, and you're going to get your lining piece which doesn't have the pocket on it, because this is the front of your bag and you've got the slip pocket there. So you want to put the lining piece that doesn't have a pocket, and you're going to place that on top, and again match up those top raw edges, and then we just want to clip all of that in place. So raw edges matching, 3 layers, the zip, the bag and the lining, the zip sandwiched in between the bag and the lining. And you can either clip or pin those layers together. And then what we want to do is measure in 4 centimetres from the edge, make a mark there, pop a clip there as well, and that's where we're going to stop sewing. So we're going to stop 4 centimetres in from the end. So we're now going to use our zip foot on our sewing machine and sew that zip there. So what will happen is that zip tape will be sandwiched in between the lining and the outer fabric of the bag. So the other thing we can do now is we can just move that zip puller all the way down and out of the way. So you can go pull that right down to the end of the zip, and then we want to change over for our zip foot, and the zip foot will just have little grooves on the side that allow the needle to get in close to the zip, and on the other side it will have these raised areas so that it can travel over the top of the zip. So we'll just place that under there, take off that first clip, pop the needle in to anchor it. So you should be I can actually see, can you see in between my fingers there, you can see the ridge of those zip teeth, and those zip teeth should travel underneath the raised bit of that zipper foot there, and the needle is getting nice and close to the edge. Move that thread out of the way. And then what I want to do is I just want to make sure that all of those edges are just matching up at the top there. So the first side of the zip has now been encased between the lining and your fabric. So there's the seam that you just made, and when you flip that back, your zip is there. Now what we need to do is encase the other side of the zip. So we're just going to do the same job and just sort of sandwich it in between. So take your back panel of your bag and lay that down face up in front of you, and then take the front panel of your bag that you've just attached the zip to and place that down on top of it, right sides together. So the right side of the zip is now facing down onto the right side of the bag. And you just want to make sure that you line those edges up so everything's lined up nicely. And you want the top edge of that zip tape to match the top edge of your fabric on the other side. Just sort of walk it around a bit to get it to line up, because now I've got quite a few layers going on there. Okay, so once you've done that, then you get your second piece of lining. So this is your piece of lining that has the pocket on it. And making sure that you've got the pocket opening at the top towards the zip, place that face down on top so your two lining fabrics are touching each other right sides together, and line that up again at the top. And then just like before, pin or clip together through the 3 layers: the back panel, the zip tape and the lining. So the zip tape is sandwiched between the panel and the lining, and you've got right sides together. So match up the raw edges at the top, match up the side seams of the back and front panel so that everything's lining up nicely. And we'll just put a few clips along that edge to secure everything before going back over to the machine and sewing it all together. And again, just like before, you want to measure in 4 centimeters from the edge, and you're going to stop sewing there. So you're going to leave a little open gap at the edge for the end of that zip where it's going to be free. So that's now clipped in place, and if I open that up just to show you, that's the inside of my bag now. And on the right side of my bag, the outside of my bag, once I've stitched, you'll end up with a situation like that, with the zip sitting centrally between the front and the back of the bag, and this little bit is sort of wiggling at the end there. So back over to the machine and we'll sew those layers together. Sandwich my zip tape in between my lining and my outer fabric. I'm going to line up just like I did before, the edge of my foot with the edge of the fabrics there, and my zip teeth are just travelling underneath that zip foot. if you do the zip up, you should find that your bag now looks like this. So I'm trying to zoom out as much as I can so you can see. So hopefully you can see there, you've got your outer of your bag there with the zip running down the centre like the spine of a book. And then if we flip this over, you've got the lining there with the wrong side of the zip. There. So now the next thing to do is to create the bag.